Are the Kansas City Chiefs built to stay on top of the AFC West once again? We're exploring the dynamics of their roster today on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast.
You are Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes, your daily podcast for NFL and college football scouting. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's better than this? It's guys, me and dudes here on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast. We're the Draft Dudes. I'm Joe Marino from Locked On Bills. He's Kyle Krabs from Locked On Dolphins. And we are your NFL experts here with you daily to talk team building across the league on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast with the Draft Dudes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Want to issue a big thank you, shout out, and welcome to our everydayers. Those of you who never miss a single episode, we appreciate y'all being here very, very much.
Joe, happy National Brock Purdy full contract details release day to you here on the program.
Happy that to you as well.
Did you dig into it at all?
No, I haven't dug in. What's the TLDR?
He got a $40 million signing bonus. So the good news for Brock is he went from 5.3 something million to $41 million in cash.
Yeah, it's good.
In 2025. His 2-year cash schedule is $88 million, which ranks 10th amongst quarterback contracts for cash in the first 2 years. The guaranteed schedule, the first 2 years are fully guaranteed, and then it's effective. His year 3 cash is only $27 million, and that is effectively like they have a hard out to make a decision if they haven't wanted to take an exit ramp on the deal. His 2028 $55 million salary guarantees in April of 2027. So they would have what's effectively a $27 million buyout in 2027 to avoid the $55 million for 2028 guarantee.
If they want to. Right? But
that's why I look at contracts is what's the wins for the players? What's the cash schedule? What's the flexibility that the team gives as it pertains to the guarantees? Because you hear 100 and whatever $1 million guaranteed, but like what's the detail? When does the money become guaranteed? Like all that stuff's really interesting to me.
Yeah, so they got a decision to make before April 1st, 2027. That's all right. I see. All right. Well, they'll roll with Brock, and if they want to keep rolling with Brock, they'll roll with Brock. But seems like a pretty good structure there for both sides.
Yeah, but that, of course, is the NFC's problem, not the AFC's problem. The AFC's problem is Patrick Mahomes.
Right.
Who just rolls out of bed and plays in the conference championship game every single year. And the Chiefs won the conference championship in 2024/2025. Got shellacked by the Eagles in the Super Bowl, and their entire offseason outlook has been centered around what were the fatal flaws that caught up to us in the biggest moments. And I think when you assess this roster, I think you see the attention that they paid to some specific spots along the roster would affirm where they felt they were weakest, and it would certainly line up with what the tape said from that game in the Super Bowl.
Corner and offensive tackle.
Good place to start. Right?
Yeah, that's they've helped themselves in those areas, and I certainly think highly of the young talent that they've added to their roster with their draft. I've said repeatedly, it's my favorite draft class of any team. As painful as that is for me to admit, I can't lie. It's amazing how they've replenished this roster with some young talent. But we will take the normal approach to discussing the Chiefs as they are next up in our roster series, where Kyle and I are grading and critiquing every roster in the league entering the 2025 season. We go through and we assess every player on the roster. We put them in buckets. Those buckets are franchise cornerstone, quality starter, rookie, sufficient starter, replacement level, quality depth, non-roster caliber, incomplete evaluation, practice squad developmental player. And every bucket has a numeric value attached to it. Every position is weighted due to importance. And by the end of this, we will really have a good feel for how these rosters across the league stack up, and we can isolate different components and compare and contrast, rank, all that type of stuff with consistent methodology. And so it's been AFC West week. We cap it off with the division champions the Chiefs, and we will talk skill players, then trenches, then back seven on defense.
That's right. And when you start with, it's funny, this is our 8th team, and we always kind of forget to like full on address. We'll talk about quarterbacks later.
Yeah.
Was there ever a team that was more appropriate to just say, don't worry about it? Like, you guys are good. In this one.
Yeah. I mean, what Mahomes is able to situationally do seemingly all the time.
Just push all the right buttons in the right moments when all your primary stuff is not there.
Yep, exactly. I mean, this offense has been it's been 15th the last 2 years in scoring. It's middle of the pack scoring offense. But when the third down conversions need to happen, when the touchdowns need to happen, when the late game rallies need to happen, they have the answers every single time.
Yep. So roster cornerstone Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, sure.
Leave it at that. Yeah. But the rest of this group, I think the thing that's interesting for me is it feels like there's a yo-yoing that's going on where, like, I've never been more down on Travis Kelce than I am right now.
Yeah.
Right.
I think most people are. I don't think that's uncommon.
Yeah, and understandably so when you just look at the raw numbers, but like you can tell he's lost a gear, right?
Yeah.
And that going into another season where he toyed retirement this offseason, I had a hard time categorizing Travis Kelce. And I think there's some of that same in the right big moments. The football IQ is going to show up and he's going to find the vacancy in the space, and the chemistry is going to be where the Pat will make a play. Mm-hmm. Right. So I don't want to totally blow over and say, oh, Kelce's washed up, but this is not the mismatch player that he was. I mean, he's playing a little bit more like a Dalton Schultz these days as like a pass catching player. Right? He's not really running away from guys. It's more so the finding voids and spaces underneath and making yourself friendly in those areas of the field.
Yeah, and the rapport that he has with Mahomes and how they see the game so similar, that's what makes that really special. I don't think if Travis Kelce were to go to another team that he would be anywhere near as valuable as he is in Kansas City with the freedom that he has to find space and then that rapport with Mahomes. And then Mahomes is a benefit to Kelce and how he's able to extend plays and move within the pocket and allow Kelce to step into those voids, right? He creates a lot of those voids with how he moves within the pocket. And so it's a pretty special situation, but it's hard to isolate Travis Kelce right now, the skill set, and think to yourself, like you said, a true mismatch guy.
Right. But I have that being the element that everybody's been accustomed to.
Yeah.
Who is on the downtrend. But then you consider names like Xavier Worthy, who obviously was a marquee ad, and Hollywood Brown, who is fully capable and missed a lot of time last year. But I think those guys can be upswing guys when it's all said and done. I really love the fit of Jalen Royals and Brashard Smith as two rookies that can potentially, I think, be contributors at some point in 2025. I think Royals has a chance to really develop some great chemistry and be a reliable player and route runner who they obviously took the swing of the bat and didn't hit with Sky Moore, but they hit on Rashee Rice when he's available and not making silly decisions off the field. And they hit on Isaiah Pacheco as a late round pick, and they bolstered that by bringing in a nice roll of the dice in Elijah Mitchell at running back. So I really like a lot of the flavor of the running of the skill group, but it's more just a matter of like your identifying player, I think, is on the descent and everybody else is kind of on the upswing. And I have a hard time kind of pegging the ceiling for the group as a result.
I think it's rooted in the next steps for Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy, where, I mean, Rashee Rice, dude, he's making play after play after play. And I another player that I think benefits from the structure of offense that Kansas City plays in Mahomes as a quarterback with the shallows and runaway routes that they get in the ball to, and he can turn and run. He's very good after the catch, but the production there, I mean, even before he got hurt last year and how it finished in 2023 was really booming. And then I think with Xavier Worthy, I think that's a player that just him and Mahomes developing more chemistry is going to lead to a lot more production because there was a lot of misses down the field. There was a lot of timing stuff with Worthy getting to his spots. If that stuff cleans up, dude, that's going to be a problem. And then, of course, with Hollywood Brown and presumably being healthy going into the season, I think there's a lot of ceiling here. I think that's where it is. And then I think Travis Kelce is no longer like a primary piece of the passing game. It's an ancillary piece, and I think that could be the icing on the cake if things take off with these receivers like they can. I think this collection of running backs is interesting as well, where I don't think the Chiefs' running game is very explosive, but it's extremely efficient, very efficient. And I think Kareem Hunt's a big part of that. And, he's not going to, rip off the long gains, but his ability to navigate space and keep the offense on schedule, create a lot of conversions and short yardage for a team that does, they don't QB sneak, they don't push with Mahomes. He's kind of an important player for their short yardage stuff. And I think, and Elijah Mitchell, I think doubles down on that. If he can be healthy, he's a very good player. And then the next factor in Brashard Smith. So, and then we didn't even talk about Noah Gray, who's a good player in his own right. That is from a target share percentage is pretty high on this team. So I think I can see the vision here and how it comes together. And I feel like it's probably as stable of a group, I think, around Mahomes as there's been in 3 years, to be honest with you. I think it has that type of potential.
It's probably fair.
Yeah.
I know we're going to get the break, but some final thoughts on that on the other side.
Yep, and the trenches, so be sure to stick with us. As a small business owner, your work doesn't end when the clock hits 5. Your business is always on your mind, which means when it's time to hire, you need a partner that works just as hard as you do. That's where LinkedIn Jobs comes in. When you clock out, LinkedIn clocks in. LinkedIn makes it easy to post your job for free, share it with your network, and get qualified candidates all in one place. And you can use LinkedIn's new feature that actually helps you write job descriptions and then post your job, and then it'll get in front of the right people to get those deep candidate insights. And here's a pro tip for you. Add the hashtag hiring frame to your profile picture to double your reach to get those qualified candidates. It's no wonder that 72% of small businesses say that LinkedIn helps them find high-quality hires. So post your job for free right now at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply.
All right. Did you grade Travis Kelce as a quality starter at this stage?
Reluctantly, yes.
I have Hollywood Brown, Travis Kelce, Isaiah Pacheco, Rashee Rice, Xavier Worthy, all as sufficient level starters with almost all of those guys upward mobility to trend up. It's really just, who does it click with this year? And then obviously Jalen Royals and Brashard Smith. And then I have Kareem Hunt, Elijah Mitchell, Noah Gray as quality depth players in the skill group.
I have it very similar. I did give Kelce the
quality starter.
And here's why. For all the things that we just said, he's still 5th in receiving yards among tight ends last year.
I get it. Somebody had to catch the ball for Pat, though.
I hear 3rd in receptions. I mean, yeah, it was 8.5 yards per catch, which is probably very low for Travis Kelce. I'm guessing that's a career low. Oh, surely it is. His career low prior was the year before at 10.6. He's gone down 2 yards per catch per year over the last 2 seasons.
Yeah.
I mean, I get the decline. There's, like you said, there's still a volume piece, and there's somebody's got to catch the ball, and there's a lot of new pieces, right? Like that receiver core turned upside down. They thought it was going to be like the Hollywood Brown, Rashee Rice show. Those guys not available almost immediately. And so it's
Rashee was the knee and Hollywood was the collarbone, I believe.
Yeah, and so Worthy quickly has to command maybe a little bit more than they wanted
Grow
to.
Up real fast, right?
It's the NFL, man. Well, they figured it out. They went to the Super Bowl. So Pacheco also, we kind of forget that he was pretty ineffective last season and was banged up last year. I mean, when that guy's on, he does give them some explosive ability and, of course, the angry running style out of that backfield.
To Xavier Worthy's credit, he had 9 touchdowns last year.
Yep.
Nice first day at the office,
Yeah, I mean, that quickness in tight areas, right? And Pat's got a quick trigger. What are you going to do, man?
Uh, it only helps when the guys in front are blocking well, and there were times in which they did, and there were times in big moments in which they didn't, and that's where you continue to see the. There's probably like 3 years now of investments at offensive tackle that have been fairly heavy. If you're
Yeah.
willing to count Kingsley Suamaatia and Wanya Morris as reasonable investments in offensive tackle.
Yeah.
And now signing Jalen Moore to a handsome contract and drafting Josh Simmons in the first round. He's the best player available. It's hard to get mad about that.
Right.
I think that gives them some flexibility. They obviously moved on from Joe Thuney, traded him to Chicago. Ryan Poles already heaping him flowers as being like an amazing leader, and he's been there for a month, and it's just justifying the contract extension that he got. But I think that was a case for Kansas City of you had to put Trey Smith on the franchise tag. He's the player that kind of has the long-term projection.
Mm-hmm.
So I get it. You can't pay everybody top market dollar. And they're already paying Creed Humphrey's the highest paid center in football for now, until Tyler Linderbaum probably gets done.
Sure, yeah.
Trey Smith, technically the highest paid offensive guard in football because he's playing on the franchise tag. So he's getting offensive tackle dollars that are boosting that tag total. Jawan Taylor got big time money. So, I mean, they're invested here. I think they're probably excited to get out of the Jawan Taylor investment after the season, just based on some of the.
Right.
He's a sufficient level starter, but the dollar amount I don't think is commensurative to what they have gotten from play. And Jalen Moore gives them some flexibility. And if Josh Simmons comes in and hits a home run, like I think you'd certainly see it appeal for playing Jalen Moore somewhere else on this offensive line.
Yeah, I think for their tackle situation between Moore, Simmons, Suamaatia, and Morris, after the season, they better have 2 starters there. And I think they can, right?
You got to find some answers.
Right, that's got to happen. Of course, Humphrey, Smith, kind of the cornerstones of this group. One thing that I think is important with Kansas City that I think has been part of the success that they've had has been their willingness and ability to transition away from players. And I think Joe Thuney's the latest example of that. You can go to Tyreek Hill. You can go to L'Jarius Sneed, Javarius Ward, Rashad Fenton, Tyrann Mathieu. There's been player after player after player that they've been willing to say, you know what, we've got what we needed to out of this player, and it's time to transition and go in a different direction. I think at D Ford, I mean, there's so many guys just like that. And so they earn a lot of benefit of the doubt. I mean, rightfully so, with them knowing who they are, who their pillars are. And if things need to change around them, they can do that. And so, yeah, Joe Thuney's a loss for this offensive line, but they also have become experts at transitioning away from players just like Joe Thuney.
I mean, you would go like, did you mention Andrew Wiley?
Yeah, you could just keep going, dude. It's never ending list. They just do it all the time.
Yeah. And I have Creed Humphrey as a cornerstone player. I think he's a top 3 center in football. I think that's the conservative enough number where I wouldn't bat an eye. You could make a case for him to be the best center in football, right?
Yeah, for sure.
I think he's got some good company, but
yeah,
he's an A1 top tier center. I do have Trey Smith as a quality starter. I kind of went back and forth, like maybe cornerstone. I think he really benefits from kind of the DNA of how they play in Kansas City and Pat and some of his pressure mitigation type stuff. But
yeah,
you would be 3 yards in a cloud of dust type of football team. You're going to absolutely love Trey Smith. I think he's tailor made for that kind of brand of physicality.
The Chiefs have some of those elements of the run game. They do.
Yep.
He matters for that. Yeah.
And you've seen it in brightest flashes when they go with the heavy personnel stuff, which they don't do a ton of.
Right.
It's kind of redundant to live in 12-13 and have Patrick Mahomes at quarterback, right? Like you're kind of, I won't say doing him a disservice, but you're not getting the full meat off the bone with Pat if that's the world that you try to live in. But situationally, you've seen them do it. And when they do it that way, I think that's really where you see Trey Smith knocking skulls in. Yeah,
I wonder if a lot of them doing that has been more rooted in the deficiencies that they've had at tackle and kind of wanting some help on the edges. I think they've overcome some stuff with some of those bigger personnel packages.
But that's the whole game, right? Is every year you give yourself as many assets as you can in the form of players with skill sets and talents and so on and so forth. And how do you problem solve what we have and what we can do relative to what we're facing this particular week.
Yeah.
And that's the whole coaching game of the game of football. And I think that's a testament to, you talk about these players that, I don't want to say become interchangeable, but that they're doing it the New England way, right? Like, we have our 3 or 4 cornerstone players, and everything else around that is negotiable, and we're not going to overpay, or we're not going to hold on to a guy for too long if it means we're going to regret being in the position that we're in.
The other part of that equation, you have got to mention, it's Andy Reid and Steve Spagnuolo.
Yeah.
Just like the Patriots had Josh McDaniels and Bill Belichick, right? Like, those coaching pillars also unlock a lot of that ability to transition roster-wise.
So
all right.
Yeah, we got to get the defensive line.
Yeah,
right. You're right.
The whole defense here on the other side of it, folks, be sure to stick with us.
Getting into the psychology of us, why do you think that just happened?
Well, because we have a sample size of a general manager that's been there for a long time. We're deeply acquainted with their team building philosophies, and there's a lot to say. I mean, I've been studying this team for a long time. I could talk Chiefs all day long about everything they've done for the last 7 years.
Yep.
So,
and they do things for better or for worse, and because they have the success that they have, at some point the process, there's a certain threshold where the process doesn't even matter for Kansas City.
They've had a lot of misses.
In the corner,
yeah, of course.
Like,
yeah, their black eyes personnel-wise are nobody. We don't have to talk about them because they keep winning.
Right.
But they've had some absolute blunders with draft picks, trades, free agent signings, just as much as any other team. But because of those core foundational elements from a coaching and player perspective, it's doesn't have to talk about Kadarius Toney or Felix Anudike-Uzomah or whatever other whiffs.
Don't slander breakout player Felix Anudike-Uzomah.
This is the year for Sky Moore, right? Clyde Edwards-Helaire, amazing draft pick. We don't, you know what I mean? Like, they got misses like other teams too. They just have those core pillars that hold everything up.
I like a lot of the DNA of this defensive line as we're talking about the defensive line.
Yeah.
Karlaftis, I have his quality starter.
Yeah.
Chris Jones, obviously cornerstone, highest paid interior defensive lineman in the game of football.
Problem.
By what? It's $5 million.
Yeah, with Aaron Donald out of the mix now, it's like it's Chris Jones gap, right? Like, there's other good D tackles, but they're not like Chris Jones.
And then the alignment versatility that Chris gives you,
right, is
your front from a problem solving perspective. Your front can feel so different week over week, just and having guaranteed disruption at that spot, no matter what alignment he's playing in.
Right, he can rush as an edge. He can rush any gap. It doesn't matter.
I think a lot of the ancillary pieces, the complementary pieces, are quality depth type players, whether that's Mike Dana and Charles Omenihu, Mike Pennell. And then you get into the first round pick bet that they made in Anudike-Uzomah. And then their 2 rookie draft picks this year, I think, have very clear pathways to having very attractive role-specific opportunities within this front, being Norman Lott as the complementary pass rusher opposite Chris Jones. And Ashton Gelati is a guy who, I mean, if you want to go heavy, like, I could see him playing opposite Karlaftis in some even front stuff if you just want to own the edges on either side of line of scrimmage on early downs.
Yeah, I love their edge situation. Karlaftis, Omenihu, Dana, Gelati, boy. Things can happen there. Yeah, and Uzomah is kind of, I mean, look, we got to see it with him, right? He as of right now, he's the least interesting. But I mean, Omenihu was injured like going into last season, came back late.
Yeah.
You know, he's still young. He's like 27 years old. He's a good player. So I think that's
around forever, doesn't it?
Yeah, right, but he's still very young. I think he's an X factor for this group. I do look at their interior guys, and outside of Chris Jones, who we talked about as interchangeable, I think there are some questions here about, do they have run stopping ability? I like Mike Pennell, but literally just as that, he's probably a 300 snap guy.
Yeah.
And then like Jerry Tillery, Omar Norman Lott are definitely going to be better rush players. And I think you might see Mike Dana reducing inside a little bit more this year. And then you're playing a little bit more with Omenihu on the outside. You have a lot of options with that.
And Gelati can do that too.
Yes. Yeah.
You can play on inside shoulder, would be some 4-tech type stuff.
Yeah.
I would say Nick Bolton helps. Nick Bolton and Leo Chenal help your ability to plug, right?
No doubt. Yeah.
If you have that, and it's very fair to say, like, I don't think they have a very attractive anchor point of attack, whole point of attack on the interior type of player on the roster.
Right.
But when you got guys that trigger downhill like Nick Bolton and Leo Chenal, and then you've got guys like Drew Tranquil and Jeffrey Bassa as the space players, and obviously Bassa is a rookie this year. Who knows what kind of opportunities he'll earn? But I mean, Tranquil is the rangy coverage player and sideline to sideline range player to go with these super physical guys. I think it gives them a little extra stiffness up the middle that makes me feel better about kind of the entire DNA of the spine of the front seven, regardless of not having that element in their defensive tackle room, which I think is a fair critique that you bring up.
The downside of that group is they've historically, especially last year, they're not very good at defending tight ends, and they will have Bolton one-on-one carrying tight ends, and I think teams have taken advantage of that. So,
okay.
Right,
great.
So there's the trade-off there, but I mean, their safety situation has also kind of transitioned a little bit here with Justin Reed. He's now a Saint, right? Is that's what happens now? They go from the Chiefs to the Saints. These players,
just another dumb Saints contract. I'm sorry.
Right, they all are.
But
Jaden Hicks started to get some run late in the season. They drafted him. They bring back Mike Edwards, who has know-how in the system. Brian Cook's a stable player for them. And then I think Chamari Connor's kind of an X factor here where he's lived in the slot, but he can also play at safety. And I think they have more depth at corner this year than they typically had with the drafting of Noel Williams. Don't love that guy being in Kansas City. Christian Fulton, right? They gave him some money. Watson's played. McDuffie's here. I think they have Josh Williams, again, who's played well at times. They've positioned their back seven, particularly in the secondary, to be very interchangeable with inside-outside players, guys that can play in the slot and at safety. And I think, go back to your problem-solving point, whatever problems a passing game can present to you in terms of weapons, they should have a lot of interchangeable options to function in a lot of different ways.
I mean, how many different guys do they have that if you said they were starting outside at week 1 at corner, you would not be surprised?
5.
It's a great place to
be. It's 5.
It's Fulton, Watson, McDuffie, Noel Williams, Joshua Williams.
Yep. Most teams will be lucky to have 3, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, and I think how they choose to, the competition of that should get them a certain floor of performance. Because I think it's fair to question, beyond Trent McDuffie, what's the ceiling of those guys? And when you have that many names competing for spots, somebody's going to level their performance up to the necessary degree to at least give you sufficient starter quality floor. And I say that with Christian Fulton coming in, I have him as a sufficient level starter.
Yeah. Well, they paid him he's going to start, but that's what the Chiefs have done for so long. They've had a bit of a shotgun approach, and then guys just step up. Like Xavier Worthy, he was a practice squad player year 1 for some other team, right? And he winds up becoming one of the better corners in the league. And Rashad Fenton winds up giving them decent time and is a 5th-round pick.
L'Jarius Sneed was a 4th-round pick.
Right. These guys weren't premium investments. You've seen it happen with Jalen Watson and Josh Williams. Unbelievable job by Spagnuolo to figure it out with these guys. And that's why they've not been burdened to pay L'Jarius Sneed or
Did you mention him on the outgoing talent
I think
list?
So. You could go in so many different directions. You never know which names are going to come out, but there's so many options.
Yeah. And case in point on that L'Jarius Sneed decision, there was some concerns about the knee, right?
Yeah.
How many games he played for Tennessee last year?
He
5.
was certainly the worst version of himself last year too.
He played 301 snaps, which is the least amount of snaps he's played in any.
That's what Sneed played last year.
Yeah.
It's almost like they knew. They were around him for however many years and thought to themselves, you know what? We'll take this 3rd-round pick and not committing this money, and we'll be fine. And they were
money elsewhere and get a cost-controlled player and lean into these young guys and restock the corner room. And
I bet you they would have went 15-2 with a Super Bowl appearance with or without L'Jarius Sneed last year.
Without L'Jarius Sneed, right? And that's the magic that's happening in Kansas City right now. So as we look at this roster, I think it's fair to question. You mentioned the weakness in covering tight ends, and we've talked about the offensive tackle situation, and obviously moving on from Joe Thuney and who's that spot and who's the guy that elevates as the complementary skill player, and how much does Kelce. At the end of the day, I think they have a lot of flexibility based on. I think the depth of this roster feels very good.
Yeah, I agree.
I think it gives them a lot of flexibility to find those problem-solving answers, not only for themselves with their own identity, but then week to week when you get different opponents that push different buttons that you're going to have to answer for.
Should be a fun year in the AFC West, man. I do think that the Broncos and Chargers are as equipped as they've been in a long time. But I think Kansas City, with the way that they drafted and some of the moves they made in free agency, I kind of went into the offseason thinking, man, I think that Kansas City has a lot to figure out, and I'm impressed with how they were able to do it.
Yep. I think it's the right call out, and this is probably going to be one of the more competitive divisions in football. Let me ask you this. Let's say the top three teams. The top three teams in the AFC, when we stack the roster power rankings, the top three teams will be in the top blank teams in the NFL.
Yeah, it's going to be – I think it'll be Baltimore, Buffalo, and Kansas City.
Well, no. The top three teams in the West.
Oh.
How far down the list of 32 teams until you get to the third team in the AFC West?
Oh, man. I bet you they got to be 12 or 15.
15 was the number in my head. Still.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll find out. We got how many more weeks of this? 6 more weeks?
6 more weeks.
6 more weeks of divisions. We have takes on takes tomorrow. So Joe's going to solicit your hot takes. You give your hot takes. We give our take on your hot takes tomorrow on the show. And then did we decide what division is next?
No, we'll go to the NFC probably.
Well, yeah, somewhere in the NFC.
Yeah.
We did the North. I think we said we were going to save the West for last.
Yeah, I think we should.
Or no, the South for last. So it's either going to be the East or the South.
East.
NFC East next, which means Monday will be the New York Football Giants.
Giants, yeah.
Great. There you go. Kyle Krabs, Joe Marino, appreciate you guys as always for checking out the show. Make it a great rest of your Thursday. We'll be back to talk to you all again tomorrow for Takes on Takes. We hope to see you then.